So, hello everyone. Today is February 15th, 2024. I was just in prayer and the Lord gave me my message for today. Yesterday I posted a video concerning a dream that God gave me where I was telling somebody that we need to prepare not just spiritually but physically, literally to able to be ready for the war that is to come. And I was telling this person who was a male that he needed to sharpen his skills concerning fighting because he used to be a professional champion for martial arts. And in the dream, I was explaining to him that God was exhorting him to go back and start, sharpening up those skills of fighting and to also stock up on food, water, and guns. Um, Somebody wrote in the comment section a comment that provoked me to pray about because I don't want to debate it. I even said, God, I'm not going to say anything. Everybody has their right to have their own opinion. I don't agree with this person, but if that's how they feel, then they should be able to be okay with that. So I started just to pray about it, and the Lord spoke to me in my prayer closet and gave me a huge message concerning this. He first of all told me his people are not ready for what is to come. The church is like those birds that I will have to find the story and put it on my description box, where there is a true story of these birds that were left stranded somehow in an island, didn't have any predators, and they just grew so comfortable not having to be escaping any dangers that they literally forgot how to fly and they stopped developing their wings. And they were so weak that they became extinct just because they were so comfortable in their environment and never had a challenge, so they stopped flying. And the Lord showed me in my prayer closet today that this is how his church here in America is concerning the war that is to happen soon. And I was asking him about the guns and like, is he against it? And first of all, let me say this is what he says. Absolutely, he's not against guns. And he showed me in scripture, and I'm bringing it to you guys. Like, for example, First Samuel chapter 17, 49 and 43. I'm going to read it to you guys. It says, And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone and slang it and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in his hand. Hold on. Of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine and took his sword and drew it out of the sheath thereof and slew him and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. And at the end, in the last two verses, I didn't write the whole thing. I'm just gonna summarize it. The Israelites ended up chasing all of them, and they killed them all, and were able to spoil their tents. And this is how they got the victory. This is literally how they were able to get the victory that God wanted them to have. But David didn't say no, God will protect us, and none of them said, let's just wait and see what God does, and nothing happened. Like, there are times that God will supernaturally protect people and that the Lord does not want them to have any guns or any weapons. But there are other times too that the Lord expects the men especially to fight and to use weapons. The stone is like a bullet. In those days, they didn't have guns. So there you have it. A stone is like a bullet, and definitely a sword is a weapon. I've also heard people talking about how the weapons were introduced to humanity through the fallen angels. But if you also look through the entire Old Testament, the way that the Lord was able to conquer each place and have the Israelites live in there and start their whole culture, it was through war, and it was with weapons. And you can't deny that. Like, you can't just totally say God is against the weapons, because it's all over the Old Testament with his people. I remember reading the story of Samuel when he found out that Saul left a king that the Lord told him he had to kill. He left the king alive, and literally Samuel took the sword himself and killed this king in front of Saul. So I don't know where the Christians are thinking that God is against weapons for protection and for self-defense when it's all over the Old Testament. People need to read the Old Testament. And what I was hearing in the spirit when I was praying right now is like, the New Testament is a different time. Of course, the Israelites already were not really in war, But God, this is what the message is for today, you guys. America's about to enter the war. It's a totally different situation, and we're gonna need to learn how to defend ourselves. We definitely cannot count on our government, not even on our military. A lot of our military is actually going to be composed by the enemy. We're going to have to protect our families, especially the women and children and the elderly. And if you are a man and you are physically fit, you should be able to know how to handle a weapon, you know. Now, the Lord did tell me, if you feel absolutely completely uncomfortable with using any type of weapon, then, don't do it. Because sometimes people like those are actually a liability, because they might end up doing the wrong thing with the weapon by mistake. But if you're somebody who just doesn't understand what God thinks, I'm letting you know, if you can handle a weapon and you can fight, then yes, have one. And if you're allowed to have one, definitely have one, and protect your wife, protect your children. And if you're a woman and you're alone and you know how to handle a weapon, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a sin. I mean, getting raped is pretty sick and it's pretty traumatizing, and it can cause people to even commit suicide after. So if you're a woman and you feel like you should have a weapon, there's nothing wrong with you having a gun to protect yourself. If God forbid something happens, that they break into your house and they try to kidnap you or rape you. Like, this is a message for everybody out there watching me right now who is having doubts about what God thinks concerning weapons. No, this is not uh, our God is not weak. Our God is a God of war. And He's telling me, my people are not ready for what is to come. They're literally like those birds that have been so comfortable in their little ways of life, and know the real challenges that they think are challenges are nothing comparing to what is about to start happening here. And He's extremely grieved about all this. It's not the fault of the people. It really is the fault of the church and the leaders of our churches. They have not really trained our people to be strong. We're weak as a body of Christ here in America. We are sick and we are weak and we are asleep. And so this is the another passage that God took me as I was praying concerning this message that He gave me. In Luke 11:21 and 22, Jesus is Himself talking about a parable. Like, He's giving a whole content of a parable about a situation. But look at these two verses. In verses 11, 20, 21, 11, verse 21 and 22, look what it says. When a strong man armed keepeth his palace, his goods are in place. But when a stronger than he shall come upon him and overcome him, he taketh from him all his armor, wherein he trusted, and divided his spoils. So Jesus himself is acknowledging that people that have armors and that have weapons are actually, better off than somebody who is just there standing with nothing to protect their goods. Now, again, I'm gonna really quick let you guys know, I totally believe that God can protect us without ever having us to touch anything, any guns. Um, I remember a story of an evangelist that he was preaching the gospel, and someone came with a gun into the church as he was preaching, and the guy was completely disarmed. He was preaching in the pulpit. This man that came into the church was genuinely determined to kill this preacher, and the preacher, all he did was look at him, and the guy fell on his face, dropped the gun, and started to weep. And later on they asked him what happened, and he just said that he looked at the preacher's eyes and it was like fire was coming out of his eyes, and that he just felt so convicted that he couldn't do it. And so there are times that God will do that. He definitely will supernaturally protect us without us having to do anything. But there also are times that calls for us to fight and to be strong and to use weapons. Like, definitely. If you read the entire Old Testament, this is how God gave the Israelites the victory. It was through war and through weapons of war, with weapons of war. David had a sword all the time in his hand, and so did Saul, and so the army that they all trained to help them conquer each place that they went to. If not, it would have not worked out, you guys. And I'm gonna also mention a movie that I saw. I talked about it in one of my videos a while ago. It was a true story of a soldier here in America. Mel Gibson is the one who made the movie. I forgot the name. I will try to post it in my description box, the trailer. And it was really, really interesting because it was about a Christian who did not believe in having a gun, but he wanted to serve in the army as a medical assistant. And he ended up saving the entire group that he was fighting with. He saved them without having to use a gun. But I have to say, you guys, that if had all the soldiers that he was trying to save and working with and fighting with, if all of them didn't have a gun, all of them would have been dead and none of that story would have occurred. The only reason he got away with not touching a gun, it was, first of all, yes, because God was with him. Definitely in the movie, it shows that the Lord did miracles, but also because the soldiers that he was helping out were killing everybody else. And literally, they killed everybody else with their guns. So this is a very controversial debate, I know, but this is my revelation about it. I do completely see that the government wants to disarm all of us because this is how they always instill their communist, tyrannist government. And if people who live in the communist countries will tell you the first thing they want to do is take the guns away from the people. And then they keep the guns for themselves. And this is how they control the people and take them to the FEMA camps and kill them all. So it's not a wise thought to just have all the civilians unarmed and let the police and the government be the only ones with the guns, because a lot of them are the bad guys. And if in our country, it's almost everybody in the government is the bad guy, and that's not a good sight. Definitely, good guys with good guns can prevent a lot of evil. Good guys with guns, not good guns. Good guys with guns or good girls with guns, they can definitely prevent a lot of evil. And so I'm just gonna share with you guys today here what the Lord is showing me concerning this very controversial topic. And I mean, if you don't feel comfortable, once again, with holding any weapons, then pray and ask God to protect you and see what He tells you. But let me tell you, He's telling me to tell the people, the majority of you, you do need to have a gun and you do need to train physically to be able to defend your families, to protect your children and your wives and your elderly. This is going to be a nasty war, and America is too comfortable. We haven't seen anything of the like in my lifetime, at least we haven't. And it's going to be a very sad thing to watch when everybody's just so confident and so comfortable, and all the enemies that are coming into our nation to take us are so strong and so vicious. It's very sad. So if you're watching me right now, pray about all this, see what God tells you, and see if He wants you to have a gun, and see if He wants you to even take some classes on how to be self-defending yourself physically. Definitely, please, guys, take serious your time and train and be focused. Don't be slapping. Don't be sloppy concerning the foods that you're eating. Try to eat healthy. I know it takes money sometimes and it's not that simple, but if you can, try to eat healthy. To try to stay in a normal weight. Try to work out and try to be fit, because we're gonna have to fight. I'm telling you right now, this is what God is showing me. We're gonna have to fight. We're gonna have to defend ourselves. We are really literally on our own. We cannot depend on anyone but God and the people around us. And try to stay in communities and together in family. Don't be alone if you have a choice. Try to be with people that you know are gonna care for you and that you can care for them back. We need to stand together in this, you guys. This is gonna get serious. May God bless you and thank you for watching. Bye.